Hi guys, welcome to Midweek with Indiacharts. This is Muskan Kapoor and I'm joined with Jay Vora. We're going to discuss the markets and I'm not going to waste a lot of time and move right into the questions. So, the US was recently introduced to the PMI numbers that came out. I want to know what that indicates.
So the PMI output index that had fallen to 47.5 and approximately last month it was around 52.5 or something. So I mean there was a very sharper contraction than what was expected, and generally a reading below 50 means that the slowdown is happening. Okay, so that is why you see the PMI number below 50, and if you see the PMI for service, that has been below the 50 mark for fourth consecutive month now, so that is already indicating weakness. But the manufacturing PMI, that had fallen, I think, from 52.7 to 52.3, but that was a little better than expected. So there is some movement that is happening in the manufacturing index, and that is kind of expanding. But that too, it is not expanding at a very good pace. So over there as well, the slowdown is being witnessed. So you know looking at all this, the Fed is still going to raise rate. That is what the Fed officials have been communicating to the market as well. So it would be interesting to see what Fed does today. Fed Jerome Powell's speech is also there, so market would like to take some cues from that, and maybe then that will kind of dictate the the later half of the week.
Correct. All sounds interesting. Sounds at something that we would look at for and what's going to happen next. Moving from this, the dollar index I've also noticed have touched its peak again. It has touched 109. What is happening? What's going to happen with the dollar index? And while we're talking about the dollar index, what's in store for USD INR as well?
Sure. So I'll just quickly share the chart. So if you see, this is the dollar index. So what had happened was that, in the past few trading sessions, it has recovered very sharply after making, I think, a low of around 104.5 or something. So now, essentially, if you look at the longer term picture, what has happened is that now the support zone of around 103 to 104, that is actually a very strong support zone. Okay, so each time I think the dollar index will test this support zone. It will try to make a comeback because this is a multi-year support zone. And if we look at the rising channel, the upper end of the rising channel now comes to around 116 or so. So most likely in the forthcoming weeks and months, you might see dollar index rising towards this zone. And if that has to happen, okay, so that is likely to put pressure on the emerging markets, and especially on all the equity markets, and as well as on the currencies as well. So if we see USD INR, so USD INR as well is holding very good. So if you see the daily chart, it is respecting all the averages, and right now it is consolidating. So I think once USD INR gets out from this range, it might also start its up move, okay, and it might head north. So that again will be the pressure point, especially for the Indian markets. And sort of similar setup is there for the other currencies as well. So if the dollar index has to rise, mostly it will take all the currencies with them higher, and that might eventually put pressure on the equity markets as well.
Okay, makes sense. So there are a lot of things that might happen in this coming week or the forthcoming weeks as well that we have to look at for how the market is going to behave, how it's going to perform. As we always come up with this question, I want to know what's going to happen with Nifty with all of this happening.
So yeah, so before coming to Nifty, I'll broadly speak about S&P. We had published a video a couple of days back, wherein we had stated that S&P is largely in a pullback mode, and broadly, I think it has done a little over 50% of the entire fall. So over there as well, it looks like the pullback might be coming to an end, and we might start seeing the next leg of fall. Okay, and sort of similar situation is there in other emerging markets as well. So we had written about Australian markets today. We had also posted about Japanese market today. So all of these indices are suggesting that some sort of larger wave X is getting completed, and if at all these are all wave X, then you might eventually see a next leg on the downside. So for the Nifty index, I mean, it is no different. So
Yeah.
if you see this chart, so Nifty had broken this trend line, okay, a few days back, but this breakout point was not able to sustain. Okay, now typically such sort of thing happens in a bear market, wherein we tend to get a breakout, but then it eventually turns out to be a false one, and then we sort of see a correction. So something similar has been seen in Nifty as well. So we believe that the recent high of around this 18,000 mark. So as long as that is not taken out, okay, we might see some bit of correction in the forthcoming trading sessions. And one more key thing which we feel is very important is that the fall from the recent high has been a 5-wave decline on the hourly chart. Now, typically in Elliott wave terms, whenever we see the 5-wave decline, it generally tends to occur in the direction of the trend. Okay. So what happens is that after a 5-wave decline, you see a pullback. Okay. And once the pullback is complete, you eventually get the next leg of down move. So right now in the past two trading sessions, we have been consolidating. Most likely that is a pullback, and if that is true, then eventually the next leg of downward movement is possible. So as and when we get some confirmation of the top that is made in the pullback, from there on we will get the next cues as to where Nifty is headed. So but more or less, if you see, the trend is possibly on the downside, at least in the near term. And as and when the fall unfolds, we might continue to assess the situation and then come up with the idea. But broadly it looks like a bear market rally, and maybe we are headed down in the forthcoming weeks and months.
Correct. As you said, it looks like something that can be a bear market rally or something that can be falling downwards. But it's again time constraint. Only time can tell where this is going to take us eventually and how this is going to end up. It can be anything. As I said, market is very, very unpredictable. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow or day after tomorrow. So yeah, probably next time that we meet up, we have a little clarity as to, oh, this finally eventually happened. And that would be something great to look at. So thank you so much for the insights that you provided us with today. Thank you.
Welcome.